Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app is, of course, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. I've got a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way, and I would love to get your thoughts. The number to call or text into the show is 719-247-1313, and away we go. I will talk about the All-Star game last night, a pleasant surprise of an All-Star game, I'll have to say that. Get to that shortly, but I do want to start with the local news of interest today, which is clearly the Denver Broncos listen to this radio program because a couple of days ago I said the Broncos needed to cut it out, stop with this tomfoolery, and get Jahdae Barron signed. I understand why R.J. Harvey's not signed. He's not on an island by himself. He's got 29 other second-round picks that are looking for the same thing R.J. Harvey is. But for the fact that the Denver Broncos were only in a group with the Cincinnati Bengals for not having their first-round pick signed, that's not a good look. This is a team that there's real momentum now. Things are right with this organization. They're supposed to be building to the next season. And if the Jahdae Barron stuff bleeds into training camp with as much anticipation as there is surrounding this Denver Broncos season, I just don't think it's good for him. Clearly, they felt the same way. Because at the 11th hour, right before the Broncos rookies were scheduled to report to the training facility, they signed first-round pick Jahdae Barron to a 4-year contract worth just over $18 million. Now, the significance of those two numbers is very little. You look at his signing bonus, you look at his salary, you look at the length of the contract with that 5th-year option that all first-round rookies get. There's nothing unique about Jahdae Barron's contract. I haven't been able to find anything yet, and with Mike Kliss initially reporting this, at no point in his reporting did he say the word guaranteed. And that's really the question here. Is this fully guaranteed? Because the guy that went one spot ahead of Barron, Emeka Egbuka, got a fully guaranteed contract from the Buccaneers. And currently 2 second-round picks have fully guaranteed contracts. Maybe that wasn't what the holdup was. But given the current discourse surrounding these second-round picks, I think it's worth mentioning whether this contract is fully guaranteed. Now, what it could be is just offset language, which is basically, this is usually a thing that NFL teams fight for. Hey, if we cut you and you sign with another team, we want to save that money against our cap. Now, do you think that it's going to come up with Jahdae Barron? No. This is a guy that they fully expect to sign to a lucrative extension in about 4 years. But you put things like this into these contracts. There's like 200 different clauses in the contract. So we don't know, and I don't know if anyone's going to ever tell us what the holdup was. But the important thing now is that he is signed. You still have the RJ Harvey thing out there. And once the proceedings up at Dove Valley are open to the media, perhaps a bit of clarification on whether RJ Harvey is there and how long this is going to last. Because RJ Harvey is still supposedly a very important piece to this puzzle that the Broncos are trying to put together. We know that their biggest deficiency was based around the run game last year. Now, Harvey did show up, as Barron did, for rookie minicamp. To their credit, they didn't have to. So it wouldn't be shocking to me if RJ Harvey is at training camp. I said this yesterday. There comes a point where RJ Harvey and his representatives, but mostly Harvey, have to decide, is this something worth holding out over? And then from the Broncos side of things, it's this fully guaranteed contract. Is this really a hill you're willing to die on? If your coach and Sean Payton likes RJ Harvey as much as we think he does, are you going to let this stand in the way of Sean Payton getting RJ Harvey ready for the upcoming season? I understand why NFL owners are holding on to this thing where they don't have to give out guaranteed contracts. I would too. In a sport as volatile as football, where injuries happen, where careers are the shortest they are in any other sport, like, I get why they're hanging on to it. But it's all about where you draw the line. And if you have an issue, take it up with the Texans. They're the ones that gave Jaden Higgins a fully guaranteed deal. Go after your own. Don't let this stand in the way of what you think could be a great season. So to me, and I would say this to any one of the other 30 or other 29 teams that have second round picks, like, either do the guaranteed thing or figure out some other way to get around it, but get them signed. But it has been found out recently with Pablo Torre's reporting when it comes to this grievance that was filed by the NFLPA. Greg Penner is a good soldier. He'll do things for the betterment of his colleagues, for his NFL owner brethren. That was a stated goal of theirs by not giving Russell Wilson a fully guaranteed contract. So it's not surprising, given that the Broncos are drawing a hard line. What I'm curious about is, what was the hard line with Jahdae Barron? We may never find out. But again, the important thing is he's in. And now we can really start to talk about what this secondary can be. I'm not ready to call it no-fly zone 2.0. Because as much as I like Jahdae Barron, I like the pick of Barron by the Denver Broncos, he's still a rookie. They're still going to pick on him. They're still going to try and exploit him. Riley Moss is still a young player. And the last time we saw Riley Moss in a big way, it wasn't a good night against T. Higgins. So before I'm ready to crown this secondary, and this doesn't have anything to do with Brandon Jones or Hufanga or Pat Surtain. Hufanga, there's some injury concerns, but as a player, It's terrific safety. So is Brandon Jones. And we know what Pat Surtain is. But Barron and Moss got to grow a little bit. They got to develop. But you look at this secondary, and what I will say, and I said this on draft night when the Broncos took Barron, what this does is it goes a long way to keeping opposing offenses honest. We had seen too often last year that teams would cheat a little bit. They'd go away from Pat Surtain with virtually no repercussions. The Broncos just did not make other teams pay for going away from Pat Surtain. And we saw these huge games, whether it be Jerry Jeudy or T. Higgins or Zay Flowers. The guy that Pat Surtain wasn't covering went off, and it cost the Denver Broncos games. Now, I don't think Barron or Moss are going to be Pat Surtain, but not a ton of teams have two elite corners. But if Barron and especially Riley Moss, because you have to keep some expectations a little bit lower with Barron going into his rookie year. But with Riley Moss, it's about time for him to take a step forward. If they could just give the threat of, hey, we can make plays too. Teams are still going to go away from Surtain. They're going to avoid him like the plague. But if Riley Moss or Jahdae Barron can pick off a couple of passes or break up a couple of passes, now other teams aren't going to be rewarded as much for going away from Pat Surtain. And you look at the defense as a whole, and I think you could say that about the way George Paton has built this defense. They're not lopsided. Certainly, Surtain is the best at what he does. Nick Bonito is an ascending star. Zach Allen is very good. But it's not that everywhere on the Broncos defense they have Pro Bowlers or elite players. But you would be hard-pressed to find the weakness. Like, who's the player, what side of the defense, what level of the defense? If you're an opposing offensive coordinator, can you go, oh, we're going to have a field day. We'll just roll everything we'll go at this guy. We'll do this. Can't really do that with the Denver Broncos on paper. And I think the most significant addition, we talk about Evan Ingram on the offensive side for obvious reasons, but Dre Greenlaw, if the Broncos had one of those weaknesses, it was at the position that Dre Greenlaw now occupies. That is an addition that hasn't been discussed maybe as much as it should be. Because there's, as much as Evan Ingram feels like some kind of missing piece on offense, Dre Greenlaw is that for defense. Now there's not a level that you could say if we just get here or if we put guys here, we're going to be able to be successful. Well, it's like we got Zach Allen up front, John Franklin Myers. So the interior, can't really attack that. Now the outside, it's Nick Bonito and a bevy of pass rushers. They got Pat Surtain on one side. They got two young and potentially very good corners with Jahdae Barron and Riley Moss. They got two veteran quality safeties, and now they have Dre Greenlaw sitting right smack dab in the middle of it all. The historical comparisons to the defense in 2015, let's hold up on that. But what I will say is with the losses that the Eagles have had on the defensive side, I think it's reasonable to think that as long as they can tighten up the run game, and that's where Dre Greenlaw helps. The run defense is what I'm talking about. They got to be a little bit better there. They have a chance to be the best defense in the National Football League. They do. The other team I would look at in that same vein is Baltimore. But Baltimore's betting on a lot of the same stuff that the Broncos are. They got a young pass rusher, Mike Green. They get a young member of the secondary in Malachi Starks. They go out and buy a little bit low on Jair Alexander. So they're betting on kind of the same thing the Broncos are in terms of plugging whatever holes they had on the defensive side. Youth and health. But for both of those teams, especially the Broncos, if their youth doesn't look young, and if the health of a Dre Greenlaw and a Hufanga holds up, I think absolutely the Denver Broncos have a chance to be the best defense in the NFL. And just to bring it around full circle to what we started with, Jahdae Barron's going to have a role to play in that. If he's one of the better rookies on the defensive side of the football next year, that's going to go a long way for the Broncos. 4 years, just over $18 million for Jahdae Barron. Still waiting on RJ Harvey, but a lot of NFL teams are waiting on their second-round pick to sign. Just getting underway on this Wednesday. Welcome your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Let's talk about that All-Star game last night. That's next. So last night was kind of a pleasant surprise, wasn't it, when it comes to the Major League Baseball All-Star Game? Almost got the I had to laugh a little bit because what was the one thing I said I wanted to see? And it was Paul Skeens mowing down the best hitters in baseball like Pedro Martinez in 99. And I'll be darned if Paul Skeens didn't come out and strike out the first two hitters that he faced. I was like, oh my, this is happening. He did not strike out the next guy, and he was only done, and he only faced the three hitters in the first inning. I forgot that the biggest impediment to me seeing Paul Skeens replicate what Pedro Martinez did in 99, which was strike out 5 of the 6 hitters that he faced, many of them Hall of Famers, was the fact that this All-Star game takes place in 2025 and starting pitchers don't go as long as they normally or as they used to. Especially Paul Skeens. Pirates seem to just be protecting him until they can get a haul of prospects from the Dodgers or Yankees or Mets. But Skeens comes out, strikes out the first 2 hitters. It was rolling for the NL. They're up 6-0. They're going to turn it into a laugher. AL comes back, ties it up, and at the end of 9, we're tied at 6. And flashbacks of Milwaukee. That game could not end in a tie. Because the last time, not just because of how unsatisfying it would be to see an All-Star game end in a tie, you know what that game in Milwaukee brought forth, right? The only thing worse than an All-Star game ending in a tie was an All-Star game that determined home field advantage in the World Series, and that's what Major League Baseball did in the wake of that tie game in Milwaukee. So they go to a swing-off. You've heard of a walk-off? Swing-off. Just a home run derby. Which, I mean, I'll take any team with Kyle Schwarber on it. He hits the 3 home runs. Hey, Neek Clifford getting interviewed right now on ESPN. Talk about him and what he's done at Summer League in just a moment. But back to baseball. So, long story short, if you didn't see, the National League won the swing off and thus won the All-Star game. And I'm perfectly okay with that game being decided in that way. Because it's an exhibition. Whatever you need to do to spice up an exhibition, whatever you need to do to get an exhibition over with, that sounds like we're all waiting, but just the fact that you've used up all your pitchers and all that kind of stuff to get it over with, do whatever you need to do. That's fine. I thought it was fun. It was a fun way to end it. And overall, it was a satisfying evening of all-star festivities. And that's the only bar I'm asking for. Just entertain me for 3 hours. But so many all-star games fall flat of that. And you know, actually, the thing that made it entertaining, it wasn't the swing-off. That added to it. That enhanced it. You know what made it entertaining? The players tried and they cared. Amazing. Just like the most earth-shattering concept you could possibly imagine, right? It's almost like that's all we ask out of the other leagues is just, hey, if you're going to be an all-star, like, care. Try hard. Not asking you to sacrifice life and limb to entertain us. You're not a gladiator, as much as athletes try to say they're gladiators. We don't want you to put yourself in harm's way, but just like try. Because if you don't care, then why am I supposed to care? Right? If you don't have passion for what you're doing, why should I have passion for something I'm living secondhand? The best part about last night was not the fact that there was a swing off. It was the fact that Major League Baseball players cared and tried. Are you listening, NBA? Are you watching? Did you watch last night, NBA? I know you didn't. But that's all we're asking. Just don't make it a sham and a farce. Make it look like an actual game played between the best of your sport. It's really not that difficult. It really isn't. And I understand it. And Juan Soto has talked about this. Like, they don't get the money they think they deserve for it. And I understand they're being pulled in a million different directions. And they get compensated for almost everything that they do. But can you just one time a year, put all of that to the side and say, for a couple of at-bats, I'm going to try hard for the couple of innings that I am in there? It's not like we're asking these guys to play a full 9 innings. And to the Major League Baseball players' credit, it looked like a game that you would have seen 20 years ago. Even the uniforms, that's an underrated improvement. Letting the players wear their own team's uniforms. Why they ever went away from that, I have no idea. But care, try, indulge us for 2 or 3 hours. Just indulge us. And the players last night, they did. So credit to them. And here's the other realization that I had last night. The sport of baseball is in a good spot, right? The entertainment level of the product is pretty high. But the way I look at it is, you know, you could pick whether steak, seafood for this metaphor. But if you have a restaurant that you eat at that undercooks your food so much that you get food poisoning every time you eat it, and somebody says, hey, do you want to go to a steakhouse? You will say, I don't like steak. I don't like seafood. And my point is, I actually don't think that I dislike baseball, that I have gone away from baseball because the product is bad. But where I shop, where I eat, where I dine the most often when it comes to baseball, it's so bad and I get sick to my stomach every time I go there. So when people ask me, hey, do you like baseball? I don't like baseball, which is not true. I don't like Rockies baseball. The problem is that once the regular season resumes, it's hard for me because the answer would be, well, just watch other teams. Watch the Dodgers, watch the Yankees, watch the Mets, watch good baseball. But it's like I can't, because the point of this is to go to the playoffs and to win the World Series, and the team that I have the most vested interest in doing those things has absolutely no chance. So the All-Star game for me was actually perfect because there are no stakes. It was just a baseball exhibition. And it was great. But now, back to reality. The Major League Baseball season continues, and Ethan Holiday is not on the Colorado Rockies yet. Take your thoughts on the swing off last night. Did you enjoy it? 719-247-1313. Coming up next, I mentioned Nick Clifford, Colorado Springs' own, was just on my television set. Another good performance by Nick in the Summer League. What that says about his chances to succeed in the NBA, and also a little on Deron Holmes last night. He put in a good performance for the Denver Nuggets as well. The Black Keys are hitting the road for their No Rain, No Flowers tour, and we want to send you to see them at the U.S. tour stop of your choice. Just text the national keyword, which is Potion, Potion. Text Potion to 95819, and you will be entered for round-trip airfare for two, a 2-night hotel stay, and 2 premium tickets to see the Black Keys in concert in your chosen city. Keep listening all day for the rest of the week for the national keywords for your chance to win. Prize provided by Live Nation and full contest rules at extrasports1300.com. Neat Clifford just finished up another outstanding Summer League performance for the Sacramento Kings. Today, he had 19 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists. And for that, he got to be interviewed on ESPN. And it continues. If you haven't been following along, Neek's been very good. He's been very good for the Sacramento Kings. And I can't say that I'm surprised one bit. I'm not. I thought he would fit in very well, and I believe that he is going to be in the Sacramento Kings rotation this year. Thought that when he was drafted. Elsewhere, Deron Holmes last night, 10 points and 11 rebounds for the Denver Nuggets in Summer League. Here's the thing about Summer League. There's an easy kind of litmus test to start with if you're watching some of these games. And you need something to kind of hold you over because overall the basketball is quite poor. I mean, that's being polite. At times, Summer League basketball is completely unwatchable. And I gotta say, I've had to tough it out. Like, I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm no hero. I'm just saying it's been a struggle to watch as much Summer League basketball as I've watched. But I do it for you. But here's the litmus test. Okay? Because normally, I'll put it this way. If you are a true rookie, you better look like you belong. Not saying you have to in game one, right? Victor Wembanyama struggled, but by the end of Summer League, the consensus opinion about you, if you are a true rookie, is you look like you belonged. Okay? And that's what Neat Clifford has absolutely done. At the very least. That might be actually undermining a little bit, underselling what Neat Clifford has done. But at the very least, he's shown he's belonged. If you are a second-year player in NBA Summer League, you better, on most nights, be one of the best players on the court. Like, that's the jump. All right? If you're a second-year player in Summer League, you better run that gym. And if you are a third-year player or older in Summer League, you should probably find a different profession. Like, that's kind of the way that I look at this. Now, Deron Holmes, in terms of his experience, he's a rookie. But remember Ben Simmons, right? And Joel Embiid's kind of another one. Like, these guys who miss significant amount of time in their rookie year. What are they doing during that rookie year? They're still getting NBA coaching, an NBA conditioning program, and going through NBA practices. Like, Deron Holmes is going to be, in many ways, classified a rookie, but he's had a lot of things that other rookies have not had. And he should look further along. I guess he would be in kind of some weird middle ground between what I said about first-year NBA players and second-year NBA players. Maybe Deron Holmes should not necessarily be the best player on the court, but the bar, I do think, should be a little bit higher than just look like you belong. And I think Deron Holmes has fit into that. I do, because on some nights he has looked like one of the best players on the floor, but there hasn't been a single night where he looks lost out there. So I think it's been overall a very good summer league for Deron Holmes. It's been a very good summer league for Nique Clifford, both in different stages of their careers. And then you have, of course, Cooper Flagg, who I know the numbers didn't look great after the first game, but if you watched it, he was getting whatever shot he wanted, right? He was breaking down the defense and getting every look that he wanted. He just wasn't knocking him down, right? Make or miss league. Second game, he comes out, gets the same shots, knocks him down, dominates. So I haven't found very many of the players that I was watching out for going into Summer League that I've come away saying they've disappointed. Nique Clifford looks every bit the player that I expect him to be, and the Sacramento Kings should be thrilled with what they've seen. I think the Denver Nuggets can be very pleased with what they've seen from Deron Holmes. And then, yeah, the Mavericks, do they deserve it? No, but they got Cooper Flagg, and he looks like how you would expect Cooper Flagg to look, albeit in just 2 games. But that's what it is. If you're a rookie, just look like you belong. You're a second-year player. You should be getting whatever you want out there. And I think the players that you expect to follow that have followed that in NBA Summer League. So good early returns for Nique Clifford. With this game, he's got to be up over 16 points a game. But affecting the game in so many different ways. That's the thing with Nique Clifford. He's not. I don't think he's a guy that's going to ever average 25 points a game. But if he averages 15 or just a tick below and is giving you 6 or 7 rebounds, 5 or 6 assists, that's a valuable player. And then Deron Holmes is doing what you expect Deron Holmes to do. He's been able to shoot the 3 ball a little bit, had some highlight reel blocks, rebounding the basketball. But what's funny about it, just how much everything has changed around the Denver Nuggets in the last month. Because a month ago, it was, well, we got to lock into Summer League because Deron Holmes, the Nuggets really need him. And maybe you're looking at the Denver Nuggets and seeing if they can find maybe another one, like another guy to kind of throw into the mix, right? Well, they go out, they make the Cam Johnson trade, which opens up all the flexibility, and the Nuggets suddenly don't look as devoted to player development as maybe they have claimed to be in the past. They get Bruce Brown, they get Tim Hardaway, they get Jonas Valanciunas, and now you're looking like how many of these younger guys are even going to play consistently for the Denver Nuggets. Right now, if there was a guy, I think it still is Deron Holmes, but he's certainly not. You don't need to pin your hopes and dreams for the Nuggets to have a capable bench on Deron Holmes. And a month ago, you thought you were going to have to. Because you look at a second unit as right now, Hardaway, Brown, the Watson, Strother Peyton Strother, Julian Watson. Maybe you push their names together like Benifer. Depending on the situation, it will either be Strother or Peyton Watson. You need offense, you need defense. And then it will be Daron Holmes as kind of a stretch four playing with Jonas Valanciunas. That's as currently constructed. Now, you have John Wallace, and apparently the way it's going to work is that Wallace and Tenzer will alternate media availabilities. Because Wallace was on Altitude Sports Radio after Tenzer was and said that a reserve point guard is still a need for them. So is that Chris Paul? Is that Malcolm Brogdon? There's one other name I had written down. A couple others. Gary Payton III. How about a couple of blasts from the past? Monte Morris, bringing him back potentially. Or how about a reunion with Russell Westbrook? Those are just names. I'm not touting one over the other. I'm just saying those are the available veteran point guards, with John Wallace saying this is still a need for us. So insert whatever name you want to insert, but that's another veteran. So now it's veteran point guard X, it's Hardaway, it's Brown, it's Valanciunas. Now that leaves like one spot in the second unit, to say nothing of when the playoffs roll around and the rotation gets a little bit shortened, whether we're going to see any of these young guys. Like there's still, look, it's an 82-game season. The season is long. All these guys are going to get run. But what you can do now, especially with Daron Holmes, is you can treat him like a rookie. Even though it seems like the need with the second unit is what Daron Holmes provides, positionally and also from a skill perspective. But it's like you need a little bit of rebounding, some shot blocking. You could put Peyton Watson in there. You can maneuver it around. So what the Nuggets are now doing with Daron Holmes, I think this season will be, well, we're going to treat him like a rookie. He's going to play, but there's not going to be as much on his shoulders as maybe you thought there was going to be before free agency started, which is probably for the best. Right? The big question I have is, what does Julian Strother and Peyton Watson look like? Because Daron Holmes, whether he plays a ton or not very much this season, it's like, okay, it's his first year of playing basketball. With Julian Strother and Peyton Watson, it's not early in their career anymore. They've aged out of summer league. Like, what do all these veterans coming in mean for them? And how is David Adelman going to balance it? Because it's not going to be the kids anymore in the second unit. It's a bunch of veterans, which I think if you're a Nuggets fan, and as I'm saying this, none of this is a bad thing. Right? None of this is a bad thing. The Nuggets said they were all in on player development, draft and develop at a time when they had no other choice. And you have seen very clearly now that they have a choice, they're like veterans. Give us all the veterans. Like, it actually somewhat surprised me that John Wallace said what he said, because I thought that they had already added enough veterans. I understand the ball handling, they need that skill set. But just from the perspective of you've already brought in 3 veteran players. Isn't that enough? And they're like, no, more veterans. which for a team that's in a title window is preferred. The flip side is when you are a team in a contending window, you have a lot of highly paid players like the Nuggets had, and you can't go out and get veterans. So, but it is funny how the Nuggets were all in on player development, and the minute that they have an out and they can start bringing in veterans, that's what they do. Michael Malone must be throwing a fit right now. But the biggest takeaway from Summer League, Deron Holmes looks good, as he should. In this being the year 1 plus for him in the NBA. 719-24-7, 1313. Coming up next, Broncos rookies reporting. How about some superlatives for just about every member of the Broncos rookie class? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Appreciate you watching the show today on our social media platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. The handle all the same at XTRA Sports 1300. If you would like to participate in the show, you can text or call in at 719 247 1313. Broncos rookies reporting to training camp today. The big news is that they got everybody locked up except R.J. Harvey, as Jahdae Barron signed his rookie deal, 4 years, just over $18 million, the option for the fifth year, as per usual. The one word that I have not seen anywhere is the word guaranteed. So I'm very curious what the holdup was, because the holdup for many rookies, especially those 32nd rounders, including R.J. Harvey, is getting guaranteed money. And the guy that went one pick before Barron, Emeka Ibuka, got a fully guaranteed contract from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So whatever the holdup was, whatever the squabble was, it got figured out, and Jahdae Barron is signed. Now, with R.J. Harvey, it's very possible that he's at training camp, because both Barron and Harvey, despite not being signed, showed up to rookie minicamp. But R.J. Harvey remains unsigned, along with 29 other second-round picks, in a story that's kind of blown up a little bit. I had someone forward me the day after I talked about this on Monday, got a Wall Street Journal article sent to me. So it's made the Journal now, this whole thing that the Houston Texans have started by giving Jaden Higgins a fully guaranteed deal. So it's still a storyline, and we'll see if there is a point where R.J. Harvey will hold out, but he hasn't held out yet. But this rookie class has reported, we think, in total. We'll get confirmation soon whether they all showed up. But it gives us a chance to kind of look at this rookie class. And I thought the best way to do it is by giving out some superlatives. Like, for instance, the most likely Broncos rookie to succeed. This, to me, is the easiest one. And it is the guy that just signed his rookie deal. It's Jahdae Barron. It's partly because I think he's the best player that the Broncos drafted, but it's because of the situation he is walking into. He is walking into a very good secondary that is a part of maybe the league's best defense, but he's not being asked to, let's compare him to, say, Travis Hunter. Actually, that's probably not a good comparison, because you know Travis Hunter has more on his plate than any other rookie in the NFL. But the idea of he's not coming into the Denver Broncos the same way Pat Surtain, that would be the best comparison. Right? When Pat Surtain came in, it's like, we took you and now you're our best corner. Jahdae Barron's not walking into that situation. I think he should be expected to be the second best corner, but he's going to have support. Good pass rush in front of him, veteran safeties behind him. I think out of all these rookies, I would expect Jahdae Barron to succeed more than anybody else in his rookie year. And maybe the other way I would phrase it is the biggest impact rookie, save for one. And I'll get to him in a little bit. But Jahdae Barron, most likely Broncos rookie to succeed. The most likely to disappoint, I have Pat Bryant. Now, RJ Harvey can get here if this thing turns ugly and he holds out and all this kind of stuff, because I don't think Sean Payton is going to, feature him if he's holding out and he's missing practices. But as of right now, he hasn't missed anything, so he's not going to be in this group. I think that, look, RJ Harvey, the impact he's going to make, I think with the addition of J.K. Dobbins, I think if you're looking to take RJ Harvey early in your fantasy draft, I say do so at your own peril. That is a crowded room, and Harvey's a rookie. So I'm not as high on RJ Harvey as others might be, but I think he can have an impact. He's a nice player. I think the whole Pat Bryant thing, and I saw some of this at rookie minicamp. Right? The one thing that Pat Bryant can do is catch the football. And that obviously will bode well for him. But if you're a guy that can catch the ball and has pretty sure hands, when you're playing against air like you are at rookie minicamp, you're going to look really good. And he did. And people are like, whoa, look at this demon. The league really let the Broncos get Pat Bryant. It's like, come on. I think, and when you say the most likely to succeed, the most likely to disappoint, it's all based on expectation. And Pat Bryant's a first half of the draft guy at a position that the Denver Broncos need help, that they don't have a lot of elite players. So I think you'll hear a lot of talk about Pat Bryant and the role he could carve out in the Broncos offense. I don't see it. Got a lot of mouths to feed. And it's not like Bo Nix in year 2 is going to be slinging around the yard like Mahomes or Allen. Okay, so you still have a young quarterback that is not going to hit every target he aims at. You have Courtland Sutton. You know he's going to get his touches. Marvin Mims, with the way that he came on late last year, you expect him to have a bigger role. Evan Ingram is in the mix and is supposed to be the missing piece to the Broncos offense. And you have multiple running backs and a coach in Sean Payton that wants to run the football desperately. So it's not so much that I'm down on Pat Bryant, although I can't say that I'm super high on his ability. But it's just like at some point you got to draw the line and be like, not everybody can get touches. We were talking about the entire first half of the year. We were wondering what's going on with Marvin Mims. Right? Why can't Marvin Mims get touches? And now we're saying now Marvin Mims is getting touches. And now it's going to be Courtland Sutton's going to get touches. Marvin Mims is going to get touches. Evan Ingram's going to get touches. The Broncos are going to commit to the run game and be a productive running team. Oh, yeah, and Bo Nix can use his legs. And they're going to have enough to go around for Pat Bryant. Like, you got to draw the line somewhere. And I don't see Pat Bryant in his rookie season coming in and stealing from Marvin Mims or Courtland Sutton. And that's about as far on the depth chart as I need to go with the wide receiver group. If Evan Ingram is going to be the impact player that I think he'll be, and if the Broncos commit to the run game and are successful in that endeavor, I just don't see how Pat Bryant is going to be able to make an impact. So that's why I have to go with him based on expectation based on where he was drafted. If some of these guys in the 5th, 6th, 7th round don't make an impact, they're not disappointing because you don't expect them to. Really, it comes down to Barron, Harvey, Bryant, and Savion Jones. Right? Those are the first 3-round guys. Those are the guys you expect to make some sort of an impact. And I look at Pat Bryant and I think that maybe he is going to be the one that won't quite hit the way some people will think. I think the most likely to surprise some people, even though he is a first half of the draft guy, Savion Jones out of LSU. I think he's in a sweet spot because he has low enough expectations because he's not really being talked about. It's mostly Barron and Harvey, then Pat Bryant, and not a lot about everybody else. It's a crowded room he's walking into, but with his size, I think he has a chance to maybe flash a little bit, especially in the preseason. Right? And a guy I would compare him to is Jonah Ellis. Not necessarily skill set or anything, but like Jonah Ellis was a guy that popped a little bit in the preseason. And then he got kind of buried a little bit on the depth chart once the season began. I could see that a little bit for Savion Jones. But I like his ability, and I think long-term he's going to be in there. So that's kind of a guy to look out for. And because the Broncos hold this like a badge of honor, let's talk about the undrafted guys. This is a shot in the dark. But the undrafted rookie that I think is going to make the team, Joaquin Davis. Undrafted out of North Carolina Central. He might be a training camp darling. Again, going back to the, helmets, t-shirts, and shorts, this dude can flat out fly. So he's going to catch the eye. I think he has a chance to make the team as a gunner on special teams. So if the Broncos, their streak's still going, right, with the undrafted rookies, it's certainly something that the Broncos tout every single year. I'll say it's Joaquin Davis is the undrafted rookie, at least the undrafted rookie that we may talk the most about during training camp, but I think also the one that may find himself making the Broncos roster when all is said and done. I think the most impactful rookie, when you really think about it, the most impactful rookie from this class might be Jeremy Crawshaw. He was their last pick in the draft, and he is a punter. I mean, as much as RJ Harvey's talked about, and I just talked about Jahdae Barron, I think Jeremy Crawshaw might be the most impactful rookie in this class. I think you're going to notice him every time the Broncos punt. If he's able to make the team, we could see if the Broncos bring in a veteran. But remember, Riley Dixon last year was top 6 in net punting and punts inside the 20. When we talk about the success of the Denver Broncos last year, I'm really not saying this tongue in cheek. Anytime you bring up a punter's worth, it sounds like you're taking a shot. Like, oh, the punter's going to be on the field a lot. No, punter's very important. For some teams, he's on the field a lot. But actually, it's about finding a balance because punters, if they're on the field a ton, their production, if you will, tends to actually get hurt by it all. But if you find a happy medium, which I think the Broncos did last year, it wasn't like Riley Dixon was out there constantly. Probably out there more than you would like him to if you're a Denver Broncos fan. But I think he was right out there a right amount to where he was still very effective. And now they take Jeremy Crawshaw. You're certainly going to see notice him more than maybe anybody else. Now, not in practice and things like that, but once preseason gets started, the regular season especially, if he's going to be their punter, he's going to be an important piece of this. The Broncos, a lot of their success on defense predicated with good field position. Or more accurately, their opposing team starting in bad field position. So, Jeremy Crawshaw might end up being the most impactful rookie from this class. Your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Broncos rookies report. Jahdae Barron signed. RJ Harvey, not so much. More Drive Time Sports after this. Got a comment on the Instagram live stream on my personal Instagram, which you can follow at Kaufman Sports if you so desire, saying that we have evidence from Sean Payton in the past that he's not inclined to give rookies a big workload, which is absolutely right. So apply that to RJ Harvey and apply that to Pat Bryant. I think it's a phenomenal point, because part of the reason we were, been wondering about Marvin Mims is because I think Sean Payton didn't want to give a younger player too much of a workload. And the Broncos are in a situation where they don't have to. Right? So you could apply that to Pat Bryant and RJ Harvey, where I would break and kind of lean a little bit more towards, I don't think Pat Bryant is going to have the impact that some people think he does, is because there is just such a need for the Broncos to be able to run the football. That's the bigger need of the Denver Broncos, because Evan Ingram can help in the pass game. I'm not a big believer in the Broncos receiving core. I like the way that they employ Marvin Mims, but there's only so much you can do. Right? You can't keep going to him. So I know that the Broncos need more talent in the wide receiving core, but Evan Ingram's an extension of that. And I love the addition of Evan Ingram for the Denver Broncos. But yeah, Sean Payton hasn't been, at least so far, hasn't been willing to, outside of Bo Nix, let rookies get a ton of work. And just when you thought RJ Harvey was going to, they brought in J.K. Dobbins. That should tell you a little something. So if you're looking at which rookie is not going to make the impact that people think he is, it's either RJ Harvey or Pat Bryant. It really is. I think Barron is going to make an impact. And because they went, defense later, maybe some of those guys won't, but those are the guys that are drafted 4th, 5th. They're kind of found money in many ways. Even though George Payton has made a habit of finding some gems late in the draft. So continue to take your thoughts on this Broncos rookie class as they report today for training camp, 719-24/7-1313. It never ceases to amaze me. That saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And I should find synonyms for those words, because it's going to sound very insulting when I'm talking about human beings. But it applies, and how true it is when it comes to sports. Bradley Beal today was bought out by the Suns and decided to sign with the Clippers. Bradley Beal, who I will remind you, ruined the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns having Kevin Durant was not a bad thing. Remember Suns in 4? They were good. They went to an NBA Finals. Where Matt Ishbia and the Suns screwed up is when they acquired Bradley Beal. It ruined it. They became redundant. They gave up more of their depth. Bradley Beal, the acquisition of Beal, ruined the Suns. He was not available on a night-to-night basis. And Phoenix couldn't wait to get rid of this guy. And all of a sudden now people are talking about Bradley Beal like he's the missing piece to a championship puzzle with the Clippers. Like, did he change who he was as a player? And the answer is no. No, he didn't. I understand, we talked about this with Michael Porter. The money you make impacts the way people perceive you. Bradley Beal is going to pay for pennies on the dollar compared to what he was being paid in Phoenix to play for LA. And certainly I can understand why having Bradley Beal at that price point is more appealing than at the price point the Phoenix Suns had him. But again, him missing games routinely was a thing. And when he was on the floor, he wasn't that impactful. What I will say about this is that it doesn't change greatly my perception of the Clippers one way or another. I don't think this is a bad move for the Clippers, but spare me the talk that Bradley Beal is now going to put the Clippers over the top. His acquisition in Phoenix ruined them. Okay, that is at least a little bit his fault. Right? It's at least a little bit his fault. The Clippers have not moved the needle at all with the acquisition of Bradley Beal. None, especially when you consider the fact that they lost Norman Powell. Right? So this is not an upgrade if you compare Powell to Beal. It ain't an upgrade. Is he an adequate replacement for Norman Powell? And the reasons why they gave up Norman Powell was because he was about to be paid a ton of money. So I understand the circumstances around the Clippers letting him go, but it doesn't mean that they got one over on the whole league because they got rid of Norman Powell and were able to bring in Bradley Beal. The Clippers are exactly the same place in the Western Conference pecking order as they were 24 hours ago. And they can have fun fighting with the Lakers, with Dallas, to be, in the mix. Maybe some people's dark horse, right? That tier, because you have Oklahoma City on top, Houston and Denver are the next tier beneath them. And then there's like a handful of teams, including both LA teams. Timberwolves, I'd probably put more with Houston and Denver. But some people would argue they're on the same level as the two LA teams. But the Clippers haven't moved at all. They're not a serious title contender. And the teams in front of them have gotten better. OKC, I think, is going to be better because of their maturation. Right? Because of how young they were when they won a title, I think there's going to be some internal improvement from the Thunder. Nuggets have gotten better. Rockets have certainly gotten better. Clippers have stayed the same at best. At best, they've stayed the same. And being able to acquire 2018 All-Stars like Infinity Stones is not going to sway me. And you say, well, Clippers took the Nuggets to Game 7. Okay. Therein lies the crux of it all with the LA Clippers. Tell me what Kawhi is going to be in the playoffs. If Kawhi is healthy, then the Clippers are not a fun team to deal with. I still don't think that they beat the Nuggets or the Rockets or the Oklahoma City Thunder or the Minnesota Timberwolves. But they can make it difficult on them if Kawhi Leonard looks like he did early in the series against the Denver Nuggets. But once the Nuggets kind of punch back with that whole skirmish there at the end of the half, what was it, game 3, game 4? The Nuggets look like a different team. And they were much better than LA after that. But what got LA out in front was that Kawhi looked like the old Kawhi. But you're not going to get that Kawhi during the regular season because he's going to be load managed to death. And there's certainly no guarantee that he's going to be able for the second straight year to show up healthy and looking like vintage Kawhi in the playoffs. And then you throw on top of it all the good that Kawhi does for you in big games. What does James Harden do for you? So, yeah, and Bradley Beal doesn't change that. How dangerous the Clippers can be is 100% based on what version of Kawhi Leonard you get. If they don't have Kawhi, they're dead. If Kawhi doesn't look like vintage Kawhi, they're toast. But we do this. And I do mean we. I'm sure I have been guilty of it. Right? Somebody gets cast off from another team. And your team picks them up and they're like, oh, I like it. Russell Westbrook. Wouldn't that be a great example? I mean, overall, I thought Russell Westbrook was a positive for the Denver Nuggets, but the stuff that Lakers fans told you and Clippers fans told you, you didn't listen. And yet it manifested itself. It took a little while, but it was there the last couple weeks of this season. You're like, oh, I can see why these other teams didn't want him anymore. So John Wallace saying that veteran point guard or a backup point guard, I should say, is still a need for this team. And people mention they name Russell Westbrook. Nope. Not interested. Not interested because the only way that I was in on Russell Westbrook was because I thought that the Denver bench just needed anything. Right? So if they were going to let Russell Westbrook run wild and do his thing, I thought the Nuggets bench could be better than it had been the previous year. But now you have Hardaway, you have Bruce Brown, you have Jonas Valanciunas, and you still have young players that supposedly you're going to be investing in. There's no room for last year's version of Russell Westbrook on this team. You need a ball handler, that's fine. There are other ball handlers. You got bench production. You got fits on the bench. You don't need Russell Westbrook. Let him go to Sacramento or somewhere else. But we do this. We see a guy in our team's uniform and we go, he's going to be better. Like almost the jersey of our favorite team bestows upon him superpowers. It never does. But we think it will. And that's what's going on with the Clippers right now. Bradley Beal in the Suns jersey, ew. Terrible, ruining the team. Can't rely on him. Past his prime. Puts on a different jersey and you're like, oh, okay. Bradley Beal on the Clippers. Nope. Same player. Doesn't change the Clippers' chances for this upcoming season one bit. 719-24-7, 1313. More Drive Time Sports and that national keyword for the Black Keys giveaway coming up next. The Black Keys hitting the road for their No Rain, No Flowers tour, and we want to send you to the U.S. tour stop of your choice. All you need to do to enter, text the national keyword POTION to 95819. That's POTION, POTION, to 95819. You'll be entered to win trip for two to see the Black Keys on their No Rain, No Flowers tour. Full rules at extrasports1300.com. So I told you last night, unless you were into Summer League, I forgot to mention Summer League, but really as a sports fan, you had two choices to view last night. It was either the All-Star game in Major League Baseball or it was Caitlin Clark. And notice that the WNBA, and this is a real thing. This is not just me. As anybody who has ever brought up that they're going to watch the WNBA, do they say we're watching the WNBA tonight or do they say we're watching Caitlin Clark? I have heard it. It's like Kleenex. You know, Kleenex is just a brand, right? There are other tissue companies that exist, but you just say, give me a Kleenex. I'm watching Caitlin. I'm watching Caitlin Clark. If that isn't a sign who the face of that league is, I don't know what is. You don't say I'm watching LeBron. You say the team, you say the NBA, whatever. Anyway, so that was the other thing you had last night was the rematch between Connecticut and Indiana. And the last time those two teams met up, it got a little feisty. Caitlin got trucked. Sophie Cunningham exacted revenge on behalf of her teammate. There were some tempers flaring in that game, certainly. Sophie Cunningham was elbowed in the head. No whistle, by the way. Which leads into where the real tempers were flaring, and that was between Caitlin Clark and the officials. The WNBA versus their referees is like the greatest rivalry in that sport. Greater than Caitlin versus Angel. It's the WNBA players and coaches against their officials. The behavior toward, they have zero respect for the referees. Zero. And it could be a little bit much at times. But none of that, what I just said, is the biggest story about last night. The biggest story is that the WNBA's All-Star Weekend is screwed. Maybe. Caitlin Clark, with less than a minute to go in last night's game, appears to re-aggravate the groin injury that kept her out for a couple of weeks, not that long ago. And she was looked to be in obvious pain. There were tears in her eyes. She had to put the towel over her head. She was in a ton of pain last night. That didn't look like somebody that's going to be right as rain come Friday night to compete in the three-point shooting contest. Fever in action tonight. No Caitlin Clark. We'll see what happens as far as Friday. If I'm the WNBA, if I'm the Indiana Fever, I'm stringing people along. I'm not announcing Caitlin Clark is out for the weekend until I absolutely have to. So I get it. But it really doesn't look like Caitlin Clark's going to play. And not only is Caitlin Clark the face of that league, the biggest draw, the reason why so many people tune in, the All-Star Weekend is being held in Indianapolis. So even Caitlin's fellow WNBA players can't really complain that it's all about Caitlin because it is in her hometown. Any All-Star game, and I say that knowing full well the reality of this situation, there will be WNBA players that if Caitlin was healthy and participating, they would resent the fact that the entire weekend was made about her. But they should understand that being that the All-Star weekend is in Indianapolis, it should be. We do this for All-Star games in every sport. We pick out the best player from that team in that city and say it's about them and feature them. But I digress. Their weekend has been absolutely torpedoed because their biggest star is not going to participate. Caitlin Clark was supposed to not only play in the game, but also in the three-point shooting contest. It was going to be her against Sabrina Ionescu. There are other players, but that's really the featured matchup. The weekend was going to be all about her, which is not that different than what the NBA has been since Caitlin Clark arrived, and deservedly so. It should be all about her. She's box office. She's appointment viewing. I like plenty of other players in that league. I thought that Paige Beckers has been terrific this year. Asia Wilson is great. Like, I'm not saying Caitlin Clark's the only one, but you just got to call it like you see it. You got to call it like it is. Caitlin Clark is the reason the WNBA is enjoying their moment in the spotlight like they are. And now their premier event that was going to be held in Caitlin's city, or what she has turned into her city, may be completely ruined. And for Caitlin Clark, it's another reminder that as brilliant as an introduction for an athlete can be in their rookie year, you just know that pitfalls and trials and tribulations are going to come. Because not only has Caitlin Clark dealt with plenty of injuries, she's played less than half of Indiana's games, but she has struggled. I thought she found something on Saturday against Dallas. I thought she was turning it around, getting back to her old self. Not so much, because before she got hurt last night, she was 1 of 7 from 3. On the road, she is 1 of her last 30 three-pointers. She has not been as good as she was the previous year. But none of this is to say, Caitlin Clark's career is coming crashing down. It's what I've been talking about. And I talk about it with Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. And I talk about it with NBA players going in their second year. It for whatever reason, you can almost set your watch for the majority of second-year players that their second year is not going to be as good as their first. And we saw these unbelievable seasons from Caitlin Clark in her rookie year, from Jaden Daniels in his rookie year, and it's just reasonable to think that for whatever reason, injury, production, the league figures them out, they're just not going to have as good of a second season. And then year 3 becomes the real test. And the players that are for real, they pop in year 3 and they go on their way with Hall of Fame careers. A lot of Caitlin's struggles and why this season hasn't been as good as her last does have to do with injury. Because I still see Caitlin Clark getting her shots off, but just not knocking them down. But a blow to her and a blow to the WNBA for sure. Speaking of All-Star, I just saw this from, I think it was Bob Nightingale. And I'll talk more about the MLB All-Star game at the top of the hour, but for those of you who are interested in ratings, Highest rated MLB All-Star game since 2017. So what they did last night worked. And I'll tell you what they did more than anything else, more than the swing off. Coming up in just a little bit. 719-247-1313. One other thing before I break here, going off of what I was just discussing with Bradley Beal, and you could apply that to DeAndre Ayton, for that matter. Like, the Lakers have a real need at his position, so I promise you DeAndre Ayton is an upgrade from no one, which is who the Lakers had in that spot. But like the Blazers said, we're good, and we don't need this guy. And he's going to be the missing piece for the Lakers? Give me a break. He's a piece. He was a missing piece because they didn't have a center. But DeAndre Ayton's not moving the needle for this team either. Luckily for the Denver Nuggets, they've made their needle-moving deals. Right? The amount of moves that they have made. And they're not a team that needed to add a lot. They needed to add some. But they may not be done. Whoever they bring in to be this backup point guard. I don't need, like I was saying earlier, I don't need Russell Westbrook back. I don't think I want CP3. I don't. Let him go to the Clippers. Just give me a capable ball handler. Like the Nuggets have already added difference-making players on their bench. Jonas Valanciunas is a difference-making player on their bench. I think people need to keep talking about Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway is a great pickup for the second unit. But if your worry is you don't have someone to handle the ball, that's fine. Just go find someone to handle the ball. Nuggets don't need to be going after the big names. Malcolm Brogdon will do just fine. What I do find interesting, though, no mention of Jalen Pickett. Like John Wallace says, backup point guard is a need, and Jalen Pickett is still on the roster. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? And that's what this offseason has told you. Right? Are the Nuggets really in on draft and develop? When that's the only labor they can afford, yeah. And it's also been telling the young players that they actually believe they're investing in. They could just put Jalen Pickett as the backup point guard. Very telling that John Wallace would say they need, not want, not desire, not maybe we need a backup point guard. So if you're looking at Holmes and Watson and Strother and Pickett and Tyson and all these guys and saying which one of these young guys is going to emerge for the Denver Nuggets, you could cross off Jalen Pickett. Because John Wallace is saying we're finding somebody that can do what he's supposed to do better. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the three stories that are driving the show and why I'm a bit more bullish on the Air Force Falcons than perhaps the preseason poll voters are.